when I started that, when I left the streets alone, I was in.
That's what they teach you. Cover your own ass, do your job, and stay.
He was our superhero.
The only thing that gives you the opportunity to live the American dream is this. Welcome back to the Dream Life Podcast, everybody. My name is Steve Buck. I'm the host, and I'm here with my co-host,
Gabie.
And we also have a contributor with us today, Corey Robinson, right here to my right-hand side. Today is episode 6. The title of today's episode is Our Life Stories. Between myself, Gabie, and Corey, we're going to just basically tell everybody what our life story is, what our pathway through life has been so far, and then we'll talk about where we're headed. I want to just take this opportunity right now to invite anybody who wants to partner with Dream Life Podcast to help us with resources, staff, hardware, software, teaching space for our knowledge centers that we're going to start getting organized here very soon. Just hit the link right at the bottom of the screen and please email us, get on board and help us accomplish our mission. And again, just to refresh everybody's memory, what our mission is. Our mission is to help young African-American men reprogram their life to get back on track so that they can learn how to live the dream life, the American dream, for themselves. That being said, Gabie, let's start with you. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your life story?
Well, I'm a mixed kid, born and raised Buffalo, New York. They call it rough buff, universal type of person. Grew up in the hood, went to a predominantly white high school.
Well, hang on. You said you were a mixed kid.
Yeah, I'm a mixed kid.
Okay, so I just want you to define that.
Black, Indian, and Italian.
So your father is?
Mixed also. More Italian and Indian.
Okay, and your mom is
my mother, Black and Indian.
Black Indian?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, go on.
Yeah. So I get mistaken for a lot of times things that I'm not. Especially when I was playing Little League football and I had my helmet on, they thought I was Caucasian. I said no. When they heard me go, ready, they did. Nah, he ain't. No, he from the hood. So yeah. So basically, went to high school. Was a troubled kid. I was in trouble all the time. Went to bat, grammar schools, high schools, all of that, and they call them alternative schools.
Did you grow up in the inner city?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I grew up in very bad streets and in projects. So I was fighting all the time, doing bad stuff, jumping off of buildings, breaking into buildings, all kind of stuff. So, sports kept me out of that. Sports. I played sports, that kept me away from a lot of the troubles that my neighborhood friends were, doing. It kept me out of a lot of that stuff. And, plus a mother had to whoop my ass. Nowadays they got laws. Kids could call, my mommy hit me. And they sending the cops to the house. Back then, you just get a switch, a extension cord, a belt, a race track, shoes. You might get hit upside the head with a claw. Hit your ass up. But yeah, it was one of those type of lives, coming up, just being rough, just being a kid. But, I did everything except for go to jail. I knew my limits, so it was a limit to everything. I know I'm gonna do this high because I know this high is send me to jail. So I'm not going that high. I'm just gonna go this high. So that's what happened pretty much. I went to high school, graduated from high school. After I got out to alternative schools, I went to high school. Graduated. Then I went to the military. If I seen boys in the hood before I went to the military, I probably wouldn't have went. But, that was a mixture of my environment and then not having a lot of the options that someone else with a two-family. I come up in a one-family home. So a lot of times you don't have certain options in a one-family home that you would have in a two. So
sure.
The options of being my own boss and all that was null and void because I didn't see people like that.
Did you have any good experiences or good things that you got out of being in the military?
Yeah, a few. I don't give a damn about Uncle Sam, but yeah, I learned a few things. How they look at you when you get into the real world. It is two different worlds. You got civilian world and you got military world. It's two different worlds. So when you get out of the military world, you're not in tune so much into the civilian world. It's kind of like if you've been in the pen or something, you're not in tune to the civilian world because you've been out of it. The military kind of like that too. It's two different worlds. Some things you can do in the military you can't do in civilian life and get away with it, you know? So it's really a different system. But you do learn some things. If you're missing a male figure in your life, you learn a few things like, you know, what they call a gig line. If you're going to speak to prospective employers, you know, you gig line, your shirt and your belt line and all that, and it lines up. They call it a gig line. They don't mean gig because of job, but that's just what they call it. But you don't get taught that type of stuff in the hood. What's a gig line? I'm going to get a job. I got to stand in line. Like, what you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's what it is. It's a line and it's a gig line. You know, your shirt go to your belt buckle and all this other stuff, and that's pretty much how it is. Yeah. So I learned that along with learning how to cover your own ass. That's what they teach you. Cover your own ass, do your job, and stay away from everybody that's doing dirty stuff. You know, stay out of trouble. Keep your nose clean, as they say. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Then I got out and I learned how to do stuff I do now.
All right, Corey, now that we've heard from Gabie, tell us your life story.
Yeah, I grew up, I was born in the Bronx. I was born in the Bronx, New York.
That's a rough part of town.
Yeah, definitely rough. But I come from a good family. I come from my mom's side of the family. We didn't have the best, but we was all right. We was good. My grandfather did his thing. We wasn't rich, but we wasn't poor. My father's side of the family, same there. My grandfather owned his house, but we were around everything that, you know, that came, you know, like right couple blocks down, all the way down, was kind of hoodish, like, but I lived around good people. I lived around bad people. I lived around rich people. You know, you make choices in life and, you know, you take choices. But me growing up, we had some hard times, you know, when my mom and dad split up. You know, that's kind of when things kind of changed up. I was real young when my mom and dad split up. I probably was about 4 or 5. My father tried to stay in our life. You know, when you're young, you don't really know what's going on when you're young.
Right.
I just, you know, I went with the punches, and, you know, I always been around family. That was a good thing about it. I stayed around my grandmoms, both sides of the family. My mother ain't ever keep us away from my dad. You know, whenever he wanted to see us, he could see us, but that separation was hard because I always looked up to my dad when I was younger.
Right.
My father worked. My grandfather owned his own carpet business. On my mom's side, my grandfather, he just was like, he was a grinder. He always was going down south and coming back to New York. Him and his friends, they had businesses. You know, I always looked at people having and not having and to not have.
Right.
To be around, looking, you know, when things got a little bit rough, like separation happened, that's when, you know, I started noticing certain things when I was younger. I didn't know too much because we still lived in decent places, you know, but it was a lot going on. And I lived around all type of races. Right. Wasn't just, you know, I lived around black, white, Chinese. I lived around everybody when I was younger. So it wasn't no type of, you know, be racist or no type of stuff like that.
So how many brothers and sisters did you have?
When I was younger, it was just me and my brother when we was younger. But I had a lot of cousins and all that. It was just me and my brothers. But growing up, it was 3 brothers and 1 little sister. It was 4 of us when we was younger. It was 4 of us. But we had a lot of cousins. We was close to family. You know, when we were young, certain family members had more than what we had. When the separations came around, and, you know, certain family members was doing different than what my mom was doing.
Right.
You know, because my mom she was definitely a hustler.
Right.
Not that you know, I learned as I grew up that my mother was a hustler.
Right,
you know?
right.
I didn't know when I was young that my mother was a hustler. You know?
Right.
My brother's father was in the streets. He was in the streets. Right. My oldest brother, father, you know, she was looked into him or whatever.
Right.
But my father was a working man.
I know this just from knowing you, but you had a lot of love in your household from your grandmother, your mother. So you had a pretty decent environment.
To a certain point. When it got rough, it got rough. And when it got real, it got real. You understand what I'm saying? Like, my life, like, when it got real, it came from, you know, my grandmother and them ain't want my mother and them around that, but when I knew it got real was when we moved to one place. And when we came in the building, the first day we came in the building, I was real young. I had to be about 5'5", maybe 5'6". I had to be about 5'6", and I seen somebody shooting dope in the building. So when I seen that, I looked at that
that's
when
crazy.
I came in the building.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Not that my mother needed a roof over our head, so she did the best that she could do.
Right.
But when I seen that, I knew to myself, like, I ain't used to seeing that.
Yeah, that's a culture
You know what I'm
shock.
saying? Like where we at? Like, this ain't, grandma and them ain't gonna be happy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that was like kind of a fast, change in my life right there. You see that, you know what I mean? That's when but I seen like drug dealers was who had everything.
Right.
That's all I seen out my window, or I came outside. Those are the people that had.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I always tried to do better. I packed bags.
Right.
That was rough.
Yeah.
Packing bags at a young age, you know what I mean? I always had to find a way to try to make ends meet because, if my mother ain't had it, I had to find some type of way to make money.
Right. So you was creating a way.
I was creating
Yeah.
I was creating a way to make a better way.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
so, environmentally speaking, what did you see, if anything, as an opportunity for you to break out of the hood?
Where I lived at that point in time, I had to fight. My neighborhood was so tough that it was people in my neighborhood that ran the neighborhood, and I really didn't want a part of that.
Right.
That type of life. You know what I mean? But I had to fight because if you didn't fight, you would get punked on.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And I just got to the point myself that I just wanted, different. I just went other places.
Yeah.
And found other type of people to be around and find something different.
Exactly.
To make my ways that didn't have to be around that. You understand what I'm saying? So my everyday life was always making $1 from a young age.
Right.
Bringing something home. And like, I wasn't too smart in school. At one point, I was learning at one point in school. But once we moved, everything was,
seemed like an urgent situation.
It was different. You know what I mean? Like, I remember they was like, oh, he's good at math. And I remember my cousins, I had smart cousins, and she's good, she's doing good at school, and I wasn't really learning. So I didn't learn early as book smart. I learned street smarts.
Yeah.
Right. Which I mean, you're forced to get street smart just, again, in the environment that you live. But were you ever really given a good education in the schools, or were you just pushed through like so many of them are?
I went through so many schools at one point in time in my life where we moved so many different places. I ain't really have time to really to learn like that. And then my mother had a learning disability. You understand what I'm saying? My mother had a learning disability, and my grandfather had a learning disability. My father's side of the family was smart. My older brother was smart. My older brother was very smart. But when it came to me, it was time that I was looking rough. I didn't want to go to school looking rough either. I was wearing clothes that didn't even fit me at one point in time. You know what I'm saying? And I had family members I was embarrassed of certain things, so I was pushed to go make money to try to make myself look decent at a point in time in life. And, I manned up so much at a young age. I had to, take care of myself, and I always was selling something. My mother pushed us to sell stuff. My mother, one day she had some pens when we was young, and it had her name. It had Teresa Robinson on the pens, and she just gave us the box of pens, like, go make some money with the pens. And I'm like, huh? Go make some money with the pens. But we always knew how to make some type of money, so we just went out, me and my brother, and it taught us how to make money then, because we had to go sell the pens. So we went and sold the pens, and we started selling the pens. And we kind of ran out of the pens because we started selling the pens that went so fast. So now we looking for something else to sell.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I would make money and bring a little money home or whatever to my mother, you know what I'm saying, whatever to help her out, you know what I'm saying? And we was real young doing that. And
Well, part and parcel of what I'm hearing and what you're describing is that it was rough when your father left the house, that created a very challenging situation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because you don't have that male father figure in your life to help give you that guidance. And I submit to you that is by design, that there are some very evil people in the world who have actually worked at breaking up the nuclear family within the African American community on purpose. And that's conversation for another day and another time, and we will have that conversation. But you recognize the impact that had on your life when your father left the house, correct?
You know, it was situations where they had to separate. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where they had to separate, and then we wouldn't see him much as, you know, when she moved on. I wasn't ready for that. Like, I didn't want to see nobody else around. You know what I mean? So
Right.
But when we did see him, you know, we would go see him, and it was just, you know, we go see the family, and it wasn't the same no more. You know what I mean? We would go see him, but it was still, the love was there, because my father, wherever we went to see my father, he came and got us. He always took us to do good things. Like, he'd take us to Empire State Building, take us downtown in Manhattan to go play games.
Right.
You know, he did the father duties whenever he was our superhero. My dad, I always fed my father. You know what I mean? So he didn't really know what was going on. My father was the type of person, he came from them days where he was a no joke father. Like, you did something wrong, once you heard, I'm calling your father, those days were serious. We got our behind taught.
Right.
You know what I mean? So things were different then.
That's why you need that father figure in there, because that discipline, right? I know when me and my siblings, you know, got out of line, my father pulled out the strap, right? And he'd line up 11 of us.
Get the strap.
Right? Okay. And he'd find out who did the deed, okay? Because he would keep going down from the top to the bottom. He'd get the strap out, and he'd whip every one of us, okay? And then after about one or two times, the person, you know, who did it, you know, they fessed up, and they took responsibility.
Right.
So now, how many children do you have total?
Me, myself?
Yeah.
Now, I have 11 children myself.
11?
I have three sets of twins.
Uh-huh.
I have 3 sets of twins. I have 11 children, though. I have 11 children. I have raised 5 of my children myself. I'm in all my kids' life, though. I play a part of. I play that father duty seriously. You know what I mean? I play a part of all my kids' life, and I thank God that my kids' life is way different than my life is. All my kids, their life is way different than how my life is. They can't even imagine. They don't even imagine. And what I still go through and struggle still to go hard for them, so they don't gotta go through nothing how I went through. You understand what I'm saying? So,
well, right, and a lot of your kids are these young African American men who need the guidance, they need the direction, they need the knowledge base of what's part and parcel to our mission. Okay, and so I think it would be beneficial as we go through this process to bring the fathers back in, even if they messed everything up. They still have an opportunity to come back in the mix and help them become better, stronger men who can live the American dream. And so I want you to just go over with the audience a little bit about some of the things that you've tried to do over the years, basically to survive. So why don't you get into a little bit of that?
You want me to talk about like what I've been through or what I'm going through now that's surviving to make?
No, everything, that whole course of life. You know, I want our audience to basically understand what you've tried to do to better yourself.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
During my time of life, I hit the streets hard at one point in time of my life. I hit the streets real hard. I was in the streets very hard in my life. I was in the streets for real, for real. The transition in my life, because once, you know, when I hit the streets, it was a time in my life that I was living good. When I hit the streets, living, you know, living different because of what I came from.
Right.
When I had my first set of twins, that's when I don't want to live the street life no more because, you know, I want to be here for my kids. I was incarcerated before. I didn't do much time, but I did enough time. I was incarcerated. I had a chance to change. When I was changing my life, it was embarrassing for me to change my life because I pioneered entrepreneuring. I started selling clothes, But when I started that, when I left the streets alone, I was embarrassed. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I was embarrassed how people were going to look at me that I'm selling merchandise now, that I'm selling this and I'm selling that. I was very embarrassed. My brother was doing it already. My brother was already doing it. I was real embarrassed. And but my younger brother was following me, so I had to change my life.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And when I changed my life to start selling stuff, which I really wanted to work. I wanted to work. I wanted to work, but I had no time to work. I had to get out there and do what I had to do.
Right.
But when I transitioned to selling merchandise, it saved me too.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I was so embarrassed. But when I did it, I perfected it. But during them times, I sold this, I sold clothes, I sold perfume, sneakers, I sold whatever I sold that was hot on the streets to bring to the streets to live better. Still not living the way I'm supposed to be living, but, getting by. You know what I'm saying?
You were carving out your own little bit of commerce within the environment that you lived. You were doing what you thought was available for an opportunity, and it obviously was an opportunity because, whatever merchandise that you were selling, you were able to make money and it helped you survive.
It definitely did. And it changed my life. It changed my life. Even though I still was in the streets because I was doing music too at the same time too. I was doing music, but selling the clothes, helped me a lot.
Right.
Selling the entrepreneur and selling the clothes. You know what I mean? I still was in the streets. I knew people that was in the streets, but it kept me away from going back to jail.
Right.
And having my kids, having to be a father to my kids, it helped me selling merchandise. Did landscaping. I tried a point in time. I was when I met Steve. I was scrapping metal. I scrapped metal before.
Right.
I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's still selling merchandise though, but it got me through and kept me away from the streets at a certain point. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
To keep me.
Well, it was me meeting you that actually gave me the idea over time to develop this podcast, because I was analyzing your life, through our conversation, right? And I was analyzing things and saying, okay, what's really happening in Corey's life? Does he really have an opportunity to be successful? What does he have for the tools to be successful? You know what I'm saying? And I contemplated all these different ideas, okay? And then one day the nickel dropped, and I said, you know what? I said, if you look at the way the system is designed to basically trap the African-American community into taking government handouts. Okay? Free food, free this, right? And the only thing that they ask you to do in exchange is just to pull the D lever, okay, when it comes time to vote. Okay, but that doesn't give you the opportunity to live the American dream. It doesn't give you the opportunity to live the American dream. The only thing that gives you the opportunity to live the American dream is the fact that a hard work ethic, which you guys have got. You've got a hard work ethic, okay? You're responding to your environment, okay? You're trying to carve out your little bit of commerce, okay, so that you can work, do commerce and try to prosper to the best of your ability. But at the end of the day, there's limitations to that simply because of the knowledge that you either do or do not have to go to that next step.
Right.
Our relationship has been very interesting over the course of time because, like I said, after actually seeing and watching and understanding how tall of a mountain that the African-American community has towards living the American dream, I said to myself, the only way it's going to get better is if people with knowledge turn around and help people actually gain the knowledge, gain the wisdom, just transform their mind so that they know, how to survive. And again, we each one of us lives a different life, okay? But the one thing that I know is that God puts each and every one of us in our own situation. he can also create opportunities that nobody else can create. And so what we're trying to do here at the Dream Life Podcast is to help young African-American men recreate the opportunities that they have to actually live the American dream. And it's going to be knowing and understanding these different perspectives, having our partners who are helping us recreate and reshape these young men. That's the type of stuff that's going to give them different opportunities than what you had. And so Corell's what, 18 or 19?
Corella's 20 now.
Oh, he's 20? Okay. Corell's 20. Then who's?
Coron is 18.
Coron's 18.
Corday is 16. Corey is going on 19. Cormaine is going on 15. Corey and Cornasia, they're twins. They're 24. Mm-hmm. Coriana and Cormaine, they're 12 going on 13.
They all got the core.
Yeah, all got the core.
That's the core of the bloodline. That's the core.
I don't know if I don't think I mentioned all of them.
So all of your kids are at that critical stage in life where they'll be able to use all of these tools that we give them to actually help them with the American dream. I know they've got your work ethic, right? And they've always been shown a lot of love. They have some foundation to work off of. And so now we just got to give them the rest of the foundation to go. So I'm going to just move on to my life story. I grew up in a large family. We lived in what I would say a typical upstate New York suburban neighborhood.
How many kids is the large family?
Well, we had 11. There were 11 kids in my family. My mother had one miscarriage.
So we all have 11 in common, just by the way. Just throw you out. You got 11. You got 11. My mother is the youngest of 11. So, yeah. So we 11 even out here. Yeah. Okay.
So we have lots of family experience, right? And so I was number 9 of 11 siblings. My mother and father owned and ran their own general construction company. And the people in our neighborhood, you know, some of them were factory workers at General Electric. The guy across the street owned a Utica Mac truck dealership. We had independent contractors that lived in our neighborhood. So I would say it was a good middle America. You know what I'm saying? There was nobody that I would call, you know, wealthy, but they were well off. They had good jobs, good opportunities in their life. And so that's the type of neighborhood that I grew up in. You know, our family obviously was always business oriented. So I had a much different foundation that I was getting built within me, you know, throughout my childhood years. But more than anything, as I said, I didn't go to school in inner city school. So when I went to school, I actually learned math, sciences, English, you know, all the core studies, actually learned and actually gained knowledge and was ready to graduate when I graduated. I went to college for a year for architectural science, and because my mind races so quickly in learning, they couldn't teach fast enough, so I got bored, and so I left the architectural science after the first year, and then I went into the field, into construction, and started learning how to build buildings and do carpentry, operating engineers work, masonry work, all types of different skills in the construction business. Then I went into management in construction, and then from there, I've built over $500 million worth of projects since I went through that process. So those same opportunities exist for everybody, but again, you have to have that foundation of knowledge in order to live the American dream, so that you have a product, you have a skill set, and you have work and work product that you can offer to somebody that they're willing to pay for. That's what we're all about. I'm just going to ask them again, anybody who wants to partner with us, at the bottom of the screen is our contact information. Please send in questions. Anybody who wants to help partner with us, let us know what you're able to do. And we're going to get things rolling. So having said all that, episode 6, Our Life Stories. Steve Buck, your host.
And Gabie,
our co-host and our contributor here.
Corey Robinson.
Good to have everybody with us, and we will see you again next time. Thank you.